Good night, Moon.
Good night, little Norgip.
I was woken up by the sound of my dad's voice calling out to me. It was 4 a.m. I lay there for about 20 minutes before I got up and made coffee. The tone of his voice in the dream took me back to when I was young, when I'd be downstairs or in my room. He'd call my name, I'd drop everything and be there, fearful and diligent. My sisters began texting in our group chat, talking about the results of my dad's MRI. My older sister was going to visit him in a few weeks. She wished she could be there sooner. I read their messages, but I wasn't sure how to respond. I went to see the new Dune movie yesterday. It was very intense and I ended up liking it a lot. I went to McDonald's afterward. I had a coupon to get a meal for $8. I went to the bookstore and bought a book for Nora. When I came home, Miriam said we already had the book. I became very sad in the evening. We put on the movie Poor Things. I didn't get much out of it. We didn't finish it. I had some dreams that I thought I would remember, but as the morning came, I began to forget them. We went for a walk to get coffee. We spoke about how sad I'd been getting. Miriam talked about how sensitive she thought I was. It made me feel weak to be seen as sensitive. Throughout my life, I've been told I'm a sensitive person, and I've always hated it. I put Nora into her high chair. I gave her blueberries, some egg and chicken, yogurt and peanut butter. We sat together in the quiet. I think I was about as old as Nora was when my mom's dad passed away. As I put dinner together, I thought about a scene from Hunger. He's at some publisher's office. The guy runs a newspaper or something like that. He tells him to write less passionately, to write something commercial, but he can't. He would if he could, but he's unable. Maybe his pride was a choice, but maybe it wasn't. I sometimes have found myself wondering if I would have been more successful as a writer if I had to starve for it. Hampson's protagonist makes the argument that even if his life depends on it, a writer can still fail miserably. I think of what it means to sit and read a book, the companionship, I suppose, the friendship that a book can offer. It's very meaningful. If I read this book, will it make me a better writer? If I read this book, will I understand how to take care of my kid? If I read this book, will I learn something about how the world operates? Those are all intellectual reasons for reading. What we think we'll get out of them. But I suppose what keeps me there, what makes me enjoy the process, is that they make me feel less alone. When I think of my own writing and how that might apply, I'm unsure. I suppose, maybe, it has something to do with writing things that make me feel less alone. Writing things that make me feel like I am myself, like I know myself. If I feel less alone writing it, it's possible that people will feel less alone reading it. Letting go of that, the idea and the pressure of marketing to a mass audience, or maybe accepting that idea of wanting to market my writing to a mass audience. Despite how insane it is to sit and record myself reading my journal and to expect it has any value to anyone, that it will mean something to some people one day. For most of all, that it means something to myself, to reckon with who I am, and how that seems to be different than others. I can often feel like I'm fundamentally wired differently than other people. Despite the feeling I have that wants to connect with people, I also know how uncomfortable I am around most people, how for the most part I want to be left on my own to write. I'm critical of people. I find it difficult to get along with people. I seldom see my friends. I find I ignore text messages and don't return phone calls. Knowing this, how do I organize my life in a way that I'm able to better myself, to become more well-adjusted, less uncomfortable, a better dad for Nora? She might see, eventually, that her dad struggles to be around people, to be himself in a crowd, but her mother is the opposite, that she has the ability to talk to many people, to connect with strangers, to feel like herself when she is around others. I hope there is some benefit to the way that I am, and that I'm not merely a tar that is stuck to their lives. I've become my anxiety, that I'm not good enough, that what I'm writing is worthless, that people will see my gravestone and they will think, that man was a failure. He was a spoiled misanthrope. I took a break from typing to go to the bathroom. I put my hoodie on, and as I passed the mirror, I caught a glimpse of myself and had the thought, people will dislike your peanut-shaped head. My hood warmed my head as I stood there and took a piss. I thought of the angle of my face that I saw in the mirror, and if it did look like a peanut, and why I thought that it wasn't good to have a peanut-shaped head. I looked at myself again as I walked past the mirror. Maybe my beard is a bit puffy. Maybe I should trim it down. Maybe it isn't long enough. Maybe I should leave it. Miriam prefers I keep it shorter. I begun to feel like I was taking value away from Miriam's life, like I was holding her back somehow, like I was dead weight, like she could be with someone who wasn't so sensitive, someone that enjoyed life, someone less neurotic and more fun. Now that I was lost in what I had been lost in, my failed career and my dad's illness, I was unsure if she would have the patience to deal with me long term, like eventually she would tire of me and cast me aside. Leaning back in my chair, I felt rotten, truly nauseated to criticize the one person in my life who really gave a shit about me, the mother of my child, my wife, to take inventory of the thoughts that I had and see the side of me, the thought that even she didn't think much of me at all. I knew how shitty my life would be without her. I'd lived enough years in the misery of my aloneness, and now, living in this house with my daughter, my wife, my mother-in-law, 2 dogs and a cat, I'm struggling. To think that it is my career, to think that it is my dad, to think that it is because I feel misunderstood, to think that it is because it is very difficult to have an 8-month-old. It seemed impossible to save myself from how I felt, this underlying sadness and hopelessness. It felt like a special talent that I had, the ability to feel an obscene amount of senseless negativity and to very carefully plant it back into the dirt. What the fuck was I even talking about with that metaphor? Planting it back into the dirt? Was that supposed to seem smart or artistic? I hated metaphors like that. I went onto my cell phone and clicked around. I looked at the settings for some reason. I thought of Miriam and how we never really were able to go out together anymore. Our lives were this marathon of getting her through law school and me on the cusp of a nervous breakdown trying to become someone. There was an update on the iOS. How fucking pointless was this update, I thought. All this was going to do is fuck up my phone. These distractions from the writing. I supposed through whatever I was feeling, I'd found a way to write about it. I wanted to write as much as possible, about as little as possible. And it seemed like I was on a track of doing that. I would keep going, keep trying to let go of what I thought was good and instead discover what is useful. I would keep trying to fight against whatever it was I was fighting against myself in order to continue down the path. I would continue to write through whatever this depression was. I couldn't understand why things had felt as hard as they had, but that is the nature of it. That is the nature of what life can be like, to be under the spell of some vicious chronic mood for no reason in particular. There didn't need to be a silver lining or a reason or a right. It was something to endure, to white knuckle and get through without any clear path, because there is no clear path. Miriam put Nora to bed. Nora began to howl, screaming more hysterically than usual. It went on for 5 minutes, then 10. Miriam went and got her. She changed her into a new outfit, something lighter. Maybe she was too warm. She gave her some milk, read her a story, and sang to her. She turned the white noise on and then gently closed the door behind her. Nora continued to scream relentlessly. After another 5 minutes or so, I went into the bedroom where Miriam was. She lay on the bed, her head on a pillow. She stared at the baby monitor. Miriam said she would wait another 10 minutes before going in again. She thought she would calm down. I didn't say anything. I went back to my chair and sat to write again. I opened the window to let in some air. I listened to Nora's cry as it went on. It seemed this was what life could be like, maybe for some reason, and maybe for no reason at all. When Nora finally calmed down, I heard Miriam sigh from the bedroom. The floor creaked as she got up from the bed and went over to close the blinds. I was sitting on the bathroom floor trying to fix a split in my toenail in the way that Miriam had showed me. She came over and told me she would do it for me. Miriam cut my toenails. I reminded her of the $20 bill that I found on the grounds when we were out walking on Sunday. I had given it to her. We watched TV afterward, the episode of A Small Light where Anne's family is found in the attic. We held hands the entire time. I thought of what I'd written about us, about the sadness that had overtaken me, about how low I'd sunk for no real reason. The perspective seemed novel. Instead of trying to trace my mood, to understand it, to think there was anything behind it, maybe it was just a black hole. The work I'd set out for myself was to sit and write through it, like I'd write through a time of calmness, of happiness. Not to write to solve any of it, but instead to work in its parallel.
Hey!